Hello guys, this will be a short video explanation for those of you who are interested in painting water surfaces and especially I will focus on ripples in this one. It won't be the explanation won't be too long. It's just for people who are practicing painting water, and I'll give you some suggestions to make sure that you can move forward when painting ripples. So to start, I have prepared a palette. I already used it, and I'm not the kind of guy who has a posh palette, so please don't mind me using just a tear-off palette. Anyway, as you can see here, I have titanium white. I don't use any other whites, just keep it with titanium white. It's easier for me, but for people who live abroad and want to use lead white instead, you can do so. Over here we have Mars yellow, which resembles yellow ochre a bit, but it's a little bit more vibrant. I like to use it because it's you have a wider range of colors you can mix with this particular Mars yellow. Over here, down here, it's ultramarine blue, which is also a vibrant kind of blue. It's one of the colors I use the most when painting water, together with titanium white. And over here we have burnt sienna. As a medium, I use liquid original, and that's the only medium I use at the moment, because I don't want to make it more complicated than it already is. For me, painting is less is more when it comes to materials. So I have a picture of how the result should end up. It's like this. You can see that the painting is very much based upon the light effects in the hair, the background, where there is a shadow from the tree, and you have this nice book with semi-transparent page she's turning, and of course the dress with the same effect. So for now I'm going to focus down here, down a bit, on this particular area, where I will explain a bit about how you can form shapes. Because one thing that's most important about painting water in general is that water doesn't behave logically. This means if you paint water, you will notice that your brain automatically will start to make kind of structure in, let's say, the waves or the ripples or any other shape that ends up in the water, like the little dots of light. But in general, you can say that water has too many factors involving it, so it doesn't behave logically at all. What we see here is river water. It's actually at the river in the town where I live, in the Netherlands, Nijmegen, which is a lovely town with lots of old buildings. So the water behaves kind of quietly over here. The riverbank is quite shallow. You can see it when the foot isn't too deep into the water. So and water is quite clear as well, for especially for a river in the Netherlands, I would say. So I will start out. What I've used for this, what you see here, these darker spots, these are stones that lie in the water, but you only see them partly. So I use blue, ultramarine, and a bit of sienna to darken those spots up. Of course, not too dark, so I always put in white to make it sure that the shade of grey is for the right amount. But over here you can see that the ground has this nice yellowish shade, which I will be working on right now, because what you see over here is not only the reflection of the girl, I painted that one here, but also the reflection of a tree that seems to be over her head somewhere. We can't see the tree itself, but there are indications that there are some I think it's a willow actually, so that there are some leaves above the water. What I do, I mix blue and a tiny bit of burnt sienna, together with lots of Mars yellow, and then I'm starting to work on these shapes over here. I have a monitor over here, I can show you. It's there you can see the painting in large, which for me makes it much more easy since I have this cataract. But that's another story, I won't bore you with that one. So the leaves are quite organic, as everything else is in water. It's important that the shapes are just as organic as you see them. You don't have to make an exact copy of the photograph, because you have at first you have some artistic freedom to change. Like I could perhaps change the color of the dress, or make sure that there is something in the background that makes it more exciting, or the shape of the bank itself. You can experiment with that. You can just make sure that you find the right composition. But in general, when it comes to water, organic shapes are the way to go. In this case, what I do is I have quite a small brush. It's a 2, and I move it sideways to make small brush strokes that go into the lighter areas. These lighter areas I did with white, blue, a bit of Mars yellow, and a bit of burnt sienna. So all the colors are being used right now. Then it's imperative that you make sure that in this case, that you have hard edges. I will move on to other points where the edges are quite soft, where you have gradients. But for this you need hard edges. That's one of the things it's typical for, let's say, a reflection. So what I do, I move the brush around in my own manner. I'm sorry for the video quality anyway. I'm just doing a tryout here, so this is my first video, and it's with the front camera of my phone, so I can see what I'm filming. But it's changing from aperture all the time, so it moves from light and dark to dark now and then. I hope you don't mind too much. Otherwise, just turn it off. So that's what it's all about, actually, to make these kind of shapes. I put some, you can see them over here, some darker dots in this area as well, but they need to be they need to be more subtle. So otherwise they are just brush strokes, and that's one of my things, is that everything has to be some kind of painterly effect to it, which means in the end that we have to paint everything a bit more into each other in these cases, because when it comes to the surface under the water, you can not see it that clearly. It disappears a bit. So here is this nice spot. It's also very bright, you know. It's one thing about water. The colors and shapes are so diverse that you have to change it all the time. So I'm moving on to the next step, which will be, I will start up here actually. Maybe that's a nice area. I'll move it down just a bit. Change the monitor position so that you can see what I'm doing. So what I'm going to do is to move in the ripples or the wavy bits like this area. It shouldn't be too flat. There are some waves, you know. I start out with the brightest color. It's just blue. With a lot of white, of course. Otherwise it won't get very bright. And then just a hinge of Mars yellow. You see this? This is my brush. It's quite a cheap one actually. It's from a discount market, and it works out fine for me. It's filament, you know, synthetic hair, and especially when it comes to softer handling of the brush, these are quite ideal, you know. When you have pig hair, it can be quite difficult to handle them very softly. It's a whole different technique. So I'm moving into this area. I'm trying to make sure that my head doesn't take over by making these shapes logically. That's really important, guys, because I don't want to make sure. I don't want to be the kind of guy who just makes up stuff in the end, and it looks like I did a Bob Ross painting. Although I'm a big admirer of Bob Ross in general, because I really like this efficiency of his technique, and he really helped many people into the joy of painting. So there's nothing wrong with him, but it's a different style, different approach. Let's say it like that. So now I'm making a bit darker color, so I'm also adding a tidbit of burnt sienna. You can see it's darker. This was the color I used, and this one I will be using now. So, and when you have this wet and wet, you can easily just make gradients. Because that's the most important stuff. I work with layers. The layer underneath it was just general paint, just to cover the surface. Because as you can see here, I started off with a grid, a simple grid, you know, with boxes 5 by 5 centimeters, 5 by 10, or even larger. To make sure the composition is at the right spot. That's all I did. I use burnt sienna for that. But but then I painted the first layer of colors already in the right direction, you know, just that it's easier to cover it in the next layer. As you can see, it takes time. Paint like this. But I think this is one of the most rewarding parts because it moves on very fast. Then of course you have still some spots that are a bit darker even. So we're going to mix a darker color with the same one, so ultramarine blue, Mars yellow. As I said, you can also use yellow ochre for it. And burnt sienna. With white, but a little bit less white. Just a little bit. Move on to the ripples as well. This point. Ripples are waiting for me to be shaped in the right condition. Yeah. So the layers underneath are quite useful because at some spots you don't have to use that much of paint to give it the right amount of effect. I'm not the kind of guy who actually wants to work a painting out until it's like a perfect copy of the photograph. It needs to be shown that it's a painting. I will zoom in on it so you can see it better. Apparently it doesn't work. Sorry guys, I will show it later on. What I did. I'm doing it very carefully because I really want these soft edges to appear. You see, so at some spots you have these, right here, you have these reflections of the all the, I don't know what it is, all the green stuff that's in the background. Apparently it's kind of grass, I'm not sure if it's reed or anything, but you can see some of the reflections further down. That is because when you see water, the waves are shaped like this, as are the ripples. And when you have the reed over here, and this side of the wave will reflect part of the reed still, even if the reed is further up, you know? So that is what happens over there, at this spot. What's important by the shape of the ripples, normally you would think that this would make a perfect round shape, or in this case a ellipse, because the angle is different. But this isn't the case, because there are 2 feet in the game and both are moving. So you see that there is a maybe pear shape. I'm not sure what kind of shape I would call this. Anyway, don't make it too round or too ellipse shaped, because then you end up in this area where things are too logically. Watch out for that, people. Yeah. See over here, there are also some bright spots. I am trying to paint them in with white and a bit of blue. Let's see how I like these ones. I paint them over these dark stones or when you go further down, you might have noticed it already, is that the darker areas like this one, they contain more warm colors. Like I mentioned before, I did it with lots of Marciello. So you have to make this change gradually. So put a bit of these colors up here as well, just to make sure that it's from bluish light shapes down to darker, warmer shades. So I will be working a bit more, but for as far as the video is concerned, I will leave it at that, because otherwise it will be information overload for anyone who's watching this. So, well, I hope you enjoyed it. You can also send me a message if you like, if you want more information or anything. And I'll hope you find some time to paint during the times that we live in, where people have to stay inside a lot. Thank you for watching, guys. Bye.